Hey, today we're gonna do this quick reaction to this article. This article was written by this guy Jason Hickel, and so I'm very skeptical when I read an article because most of the Westerners, when they write something, they fail to basically analyze the situation correctly. It's always coming from an imperialist mindset, even if they want to say the truth. Anyway, I haven't read the article. I'm trying to be like objective and all that. So Jason is an anthropologist and professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Hickel research and writing focus on economic anthropology and development, and is particularly opposed to capitalism, neocolonialism, as well as economic growth as a measure of human development. So he's 42 years old and apparently he's a professor in Barcelona. Anyway, let's read it. So it says in, let's see how long is it. Okay, it's not that long. It says on March 4th, Bernie Sanders published a statement saying for 250 years, the United States has supported democracy, expressing his concern. Well, first of all, that country started with a genocide. So expressing his concern that the Trump administration has taken an authoritarian turn that violates a century-long tradition of U.S. democratic principle and home approach. This is what I said. They fail to basically take the history into context. Some of you just believe that we don't know your history, but we are familiar with your history because it derailed our history. And some of us, like our parents and grandparents, have seen it. They have seen your savagery in real time. Like they seen it with their own eyes. So when you talk about Trump have violated, I mean, motherfucker, you have always violated that. Now, I don't want to talk too much because we're not going to finish the article. So this is not uncommon to hear from U.S. politicians. Biden routinely referred to the U.S. as a beacon of democracy. Why a mockery of democracy, as did many presidents before him. The statement from Sanders simply highlights how widespread this narrative in the U.S. across the congressional political spectrum. Most Americans are propagandize. Even their schools and their educational system, they don't even teach them. For example, you take the Civil War, and they will completely disregard. They will make it about slavery. What it was never about slavery. Well, that was just a small part of it. It was about the banking system. That's a long story. I don't go into the details. So one can understand what Sanders is trying to argue, but this claim about the U.S. and democracy is fundamentally incorrect. Indeed, the evidence against it is overwhelming. The United States was not, in fact, founded as a democracy. On the contrary, it was an apartheid regime. Didn't what I just said in the beginning? It was an apartheid. Basically, they hunted those Native Americans like animals. They massacred them and then called them savages. Like the audacity of Americans is astonishing. With institutionalized inequality on the basis of race, gender, class, and governance as an oligarchy. It's still an oligarchy. One law I've just realized, they legalized interracial marriage in 1967. I mean, when I saw that, I was shocked. I was like, hell no. This the same people talking about like human rights and all that. Interracial marriage. They wouldn't allow a black man to marry a white woman or any other race, right? So this is not a hyperbole. It is a well-documented reality. U.S. state generally limited voting right to white male who owned property, about 6% of the population. I mean, even those natives that we're talking about, the indigenous people who live in there, they were the last group of people in the United States to get the right to vote. Like, it's so unique. It's like when you read about like the British Empire, like they're so unique in their extremism. Like no other country have made that, or no other empire have done that. The Belgium too, the French too, the Italians, the Portuguese, they all pretty much were very extreme in the way they thought is the right way to manage the society and all that. I mean, so the working class people, women, and people of color overwhelmingly did not have the right to vote. Virtually all black people were subject to mass enslavement and had no right whatsoever, and indigenous Americans were targets of government-sponsored ethnic cleansing and genocide. Yeah, So what you see right now in Gaza and Palestine, it's just an extension. This is just like the extreme kind of like a what's the word? Extension of that same imperialist mindset. People argue, well, Israel is not America. Well, motherfucker, that's the same country. The property criteria was only fully abolished in 1856. Women were not guaranteed the right to vote until 1920. For indigenous Americans, it was 1948. Imagine the people who were always living there had the right to vote in 1948. I mean, that what was that, like 200 years later? Crazy. Racial segregation. The U.S. the U.S. system of apartheid was not fully abolished until 1964, and it wasn't until 1965 that voting rights were formally guaranteed for all minorities. At this point, is worth underscoring. The United States did not have franchise until 1965, nearly 190 years after its founding. Wow. In each case, the franchise was not handed down by government committed to democratic principle, but fought for and won by working class people through organized collective struggle. Even so, the extent in which the US functions as a democracy today is highly questionable. Yeah, well, you probably never seen, if you're American, probably never seen a fair election. Power is passed back and forth between two establishment parties, both of which are run by rich people and committed of the interest of capital. So I've said it previously and I'll say it again. Once you introduce money into politics, everything becomes corrupt. You abandon the idea of democracy. First of all, the idea of democracy was always a bad idea because they never intended for you to be free. But once you have these lobbies and all that, I watched a documentary talking about like these PAC, this political committee, whatever, like APEC and all that. And there was a law, there was a new law, new bill passed and approved by Congress and the House to basically fuel money from rich people to the politician. Because before you can only give like maybe $1,000 or $2,000 to each politician, and they didn't like that. They want millions, hundreds of millions. That's what they wanted. So third party are effectively frozen out of the national political process, and elite and corporation can spend unlimited money on campaign finance to install politicians that will shape policy to their benefit. They also passed a new law that will allow foreign corporation, meaning corporation outside of the United States, to basically interfere with the election. So a huge company in motherfucking Singapore, whatever, can basically send millions of dollars to. It was illegal before, and they legalized. So many times you see money, like I said. So the elite and corporation can spend unlimited money. We've read that democracy cannot function under this condition. Well, that's exactly what I explained. This is born out of evidence. I mean, I'm reading too slow. This is born out of evidence. A study, 2014 study published by Cambridge University Press, found that the U.S. policy implementation generally follows the preference of elite and organized business lobbies, even when it runs against the preference of majority. So that means you don't have democracy. In other words, the U.S. more closely resembles an oligarchy than a democracy. These help make sense of the data of the Democracy Perception Index, which in 2023 showed that only 54% of US Americans believe that their country is actually democratic, and only 42% say that the government serves the majority of people. Well, you got about 42% of people completely stupid, right? And 54%, they're just basically thinking that, well, if we just elect this person, we will get a different result or whatever. So the entire thing is crumbling. What a state. So much of the democracy at home. What about abroad? US politicians claim that the United States championed democracy around the world. But in fact, the US record on this is overwhelmingly the opposite. The US regularly intervene in foreign elections to corrupt the democratic process in favor of U.S. interests. A recent study by Don Levin documented that the U.S. intervened in foreign elections at least 28 times between 1946 and 2014, usually to prevent left-wing parties from forming a government or retaining power. Please tell me that intervening in 128 countries, sovereign countries, does not make you a terrorist organization. During the 20th century, the US actively opposed anti-colonial liberation struggle in Asia and Africa. They don't want the rest of the world because the only way for the United States to appear that it's winning is that everybody has to lose. And you can see it when they form this organization and institution like the United Nations, the ICG, the World Bank, what's called the trading. They always put themselves on top. So that trade organization that I talked about, I can't remember its name, but it only favor rich people, rich white majority countries. It works against Africa, it works against Latin America, it works against Southeast Asia. And that's what they do. Like a win-win situation for the West is a loss for them. They don't want other people to win. Because actually they cannot compete. You can see it with China. Because they have huge territory and they're smart and all that. They're surpassing them in pretty much all aspects, in renewable energy, AI, public transportation, healthcare. It famously supported the apartheid regime in South Africa. The US government collaborated the imprisonment of Mandela and listed him as a terrorist until 2008. I just made a reaction to a video about Nelson Mandela. You can watch it, it's on my channel. And continue to support the apartheid regime of Israel today. I said Israel and the United States, it's the same country. It's just a project. It's just a colonial project. The US propped the Pinochet dictatorship in Chile, the Shah dictatorship in Iran, the Mobutu dictatorship in Zaire, the Franco dictatorship in Spain, and many others. I mean, this is endless crimes, endless atrocities. You can never finish this shit. This continues today. A recent report found that 73% of the world dictatorships receive direct military support from the United States. 73%. The US has a long history of engaging in regime change operation and other countries to ensure the condition of US geopolitical hegemony and capital accumulation. Academic and journalists such as Lindsay, William Bloom, and others have documented at least 113 such operations since 1949, based on official record, not including operations conducted in the late 19th century and early 20th century, under the Monroe Doctrine. Donald Trump just invoked this doctrine. They fantasize about the past. Donald Trump, in his second election, he just said this bullshit about this Monroe Doctrine. Half of these were perpetrated. I always struggle to say this word. Perpetrated against liberal democracy or democratic centralist state. So the United States famously backed coup or assassination against democratically elected leaders such as Salvador Allende in Chile, Jacob Arbenz in Guatemala, and Patrice Lumumba in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You know what they did to Patrice Lumumba when they assassinated him? They throw his body in acid. That's what you're defending, talking about democracy, all of whom were replaced by dictators. So in sum, the United States was not founded as a democracy, has not been a democracy for the majority of its existence, and even now it's not a democracy. Suffers every severe democratic deficit today to the point where it continues to function as an oligarchy. Well, that's what I said. As long as a long regard of preventing, undermining, and even destroying democratic government abroad. This problem did not start with the Trump administration. It's a structural pathology of the US system. The political objective and progressive of the US should be to fight to change it. Yes, I mean, like I said, he said it's a structural pathology. This is a fucking cancer. That's what it is. There's a cancer, and not just the United States, the West in general. They have a cancer. Like you gotta overthrow the whole thing, right? And come up with something new. Now, how do you do it? You gotta look at other the other group of people who are actually civilized and learn from them. But we know because of your arrogance and defensiveness and all that, you think you got the greatest nation on earth. And so that's pretty much my take on it. If you appreciate this content, like, subscribe, and see you next time.